I want to thank you for inviting me to be with you today. A little bit about me. So I'm a fifth generation San Francisco born, raised on the peninsula, Westboro boy. I was raised Roman Catholic, trained as an altar boy by Sister Suzanne Tulin, who's at the Mercy Center, and confirmed by Archbishop McGuckin in 1976. I loved church and attended regularly until I went to college in the fall of 1981. Then I came out and I started migrating away from the church as it migrated away from the Vatican II, more liberal, inclusive, toward the more conservative church it is today. I like to say that I didn't leave the church, it left me. It wasn't until 1996, 2 years after the death of my second partner from HIV/AIDS, the subsequent demise of my best friend from college, and the beginning of healing of multiple loss-aggravated depression, that I returned to church. It was at the invitation of Reverend Jim Mitulski, also raised in the Roman Catholic faith, that brought me to my first service at MCC San Francisco, a proudly queer and ecumenical Christian church. My mind was blown. So after 15 years of active membership in the MCC San Francisco congregation, I was in the choir, I was a facilitator of groups, I was in program development, and I served a term on the board of directors. This stirring to enroll in seminary and to step further into ministry occurred. So off I went to Pacific School of Religion at the Graduate Theological Union, also known as the Left Coast Seminary. I remember that first week of drinking from the fire hose, if not the day, that my New Testament professor let the class know that there is no objective way to read the Bible. Our understanding of the Bible is predicated upon our social location, which is defined as the combination of factors including gender and race, social class, age, ability, religion, sexual orientation, and geographic location. You see, social location is the lens through which we see, or we don't see. Our blind spots are just as informed by our social location as our vision. Will you join me in prayer? Most holy, gracious, loving God, we, your people of faith, have come before you with whatever blind spots we have, striving to live into your vision. We cry out in the prayer that we might be more like your child, Jesus, being your love and your grace and your mercy and your justice in the world. May the meditations of our hearts and the words from my mouth be pleasing to you. Amen. So here we are in the story of the healing of the blind beggar Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. According to the Abraham publications, Bartimaeus can have two different meanings: son of he who is highly prized, or son of honor, or son of the unclean ones, son of uncleanliness. Then perhaps even now an affliction is attributed to someone's fault, something that they didn't do. Now, after a short discourse on the social location of Mark and the importance of naming lineage at the moment, Abraham concludes that the situation would render the name Bartimaeus the meaning of son of the unclean one, or son of uncleanliness. Now, this may seem a bit stretched, but it would neatly solve the puzzle as to why Mark insists of talking about the one son of Timaeus, who was the son of Timaeus, Bartimaeus. This statement may be now explained as what is high prized in our society is really a state of uncleanliness, which results in blindness, which can only be healed by being in relationship with Christ. So this passage is a bridge of Jesus's passage from his ministry in Galilee to what is to come in Jerusalem. It is the last of the miracle healing stories in Mark's gospel as Jesus journeys towards the tomb. Earlier in chapter 8, verses 22 through 24, we see Jesus, after two attempts, he heals another blind man, sending him away to his home, saying, "Do not even enter the village." And then Jesus goes on to heal the epileptic boy. Lift up the little ones, those who are not counted as human, that are possessions, and proclaim the importance of service to the many and not the glorification of oneself. He's turning the social norms upside down all along the way. And now Jesus asks this Bartimaeus, this unclean one, this outcast of society who has dared to cry out in spite of the in-crowd followers who tried to silence him and keep him in his place. Jesus asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" This man from the margins seeking restoration and wholeness, this man who refuses to be defined by circumstances and casts off the cloak of oppression which others dress him in, responds, "My teacher, let me see again." And Jesus says to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regains his sight, and Bartimaeus is healed with just a word. And rather than being sent away in his restoration, he becomes a disciple as he follows him on the way toward Jerusalem, toward the celebration and pain to come. Now, I can easily think about my community's prayers and cries for helps in my lifetime. I think about the 46 minutes in 1989 when the Golden Gate Bridge was closed by activists crying, "AIDS is disrupting our lives, and until people's lives are disrupted, they don't pay attention. We don't have time to wait. My friends are dying all around me." And if you remember in the papers, people were inconvenienced. I mean, how dare they do that? And then I think about the May 21, 1990 National Institutes of Health die-in with ACT UP, plastering buildings with signs and banners and splattering blood in front of the FDA and occupying the NIH. And the government has blood on its hands was one of the things that they said, to illustrate their demands for governmental action on AIDS treatment. Yes, they were so vulgar to do that. And I think about my personal prayers of bargaining with God. Well, if this, then take me now. What do you want for me? Now, I wouldn't be here today with you had not in 1968, Reverend Troy Perry, who in despair attempted suicide, and as he was healing, cried out to God. And if God had not, in that still small voice, responded, "Start the church now. Serve the despised." And then I think about the seemingly unanswered prayers, or the how I and we, the church, fall short of being the church and in championing those who are praying and crying for us to help. That restoration that does not happen. As the prophet Habakkuk wrote, "How long, God, must I cry for help, but you do not listen, or cry out to you violence and you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. The law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted." Now, Howard Thurman, in his Deep River Reflections on the Religious Insight of certain of the Negro spirituals, writes about blind Bartimaeus and the sorrow songs. He writes, "The slave singers did a strange thing with this story. They identified themselves complete with the blind man at every point, but at the most crucial one. In the song, the blind man does not receive his sight. The song opens with the cry. It goes through the many nuances of yearning, but it always ends with the same cry in which it began. The explanation for this is not far to seek, for the people who sang this song had not received their sight. They had longed for freedom with all their passionate endeavors, but it had not come. This brings us face to face with the primary discovery of the human spirit. Very often, the pain of life is not relieved. There is a great cry of desire, but the answer does not come. Only the fading echo of one's lonely cry. I think about this and I see how Black lives do not seem to matter in these United States. I see that women's health and their autonomy being governed by old white men I see that in a country founded by immigrants, the lack of immigrant rights and the struggle of undocumented workers is in a system that exploits and denies them. I see how the Build Back Better plan is being derailed by those who fail to see the long vision and perpetuate social and political dysfunction by putting profit before people. I see the epidemic of homelessness in our Bay Area, some of the wealthiest zip codes in the world. And there are so many things because of my social location, or even because my heart is overloaded with the need that I do not see. I mean, I haven't even delved into the ableism this passage can evoke. And I ask, open the eyes of my heart, God. And then there is this glimpse called a miracle, as Reverend Cynthia A. Jarvis, pastor of the Presbyterian Church of Chestnut Hill in Pennsylvania, writes in her commentary about this passage. Miracles are those events that bring people from the darkness into the light. Miracles turn our attention to what really matters in life and death. Miracles claim no power, but reveal a power who wills to be known. Miracles point beyond the one before us to the one who made us for love's sake. Miracles as such, wrote Rudolf Bultmann, means the activity of God. Miracles as such, wrote Rudolf Bultmann, means the activities of God. And these glimpses of miracles keep my faith strong and they restore my soul. But I believe, as Iyanla Vanzant, the inspirational teacher, writes, in my deepest, darkest moments, what really got me through was prayer. Sometimes my prayer was, help me. Sometimes the prayer was, thank you. And what I've discovered is that the intimate connection and communication with my Creator will always get me through, because I know my support, my help, just as it says in the Psalm, is just a prayer away. And I pray that and that we, the church, open our eyes and continue to gather a crowd around what God is doing in the world, being open to the touch of Jesus, making and keeping human life human, bringing out the healing miracles, that restoration that Bartimaeus cries out to us for. Amen.